I'm pretty sure that I wore this when I did the last Buggy video where I discussed just kind of Buggy in general. But I figured it was a good callback if that was the case. But this is not going to stay on my nose the whole time because it actually makes it kind of hard to breathe. It's my red nose day thing. Also, I don't know if I may have worn this on the channel before this video goes up. This is a Jackalope shirt that I have that says Stay Curious. That is from Milo Rossi, who is one of the other YouTubers that I watch. I did a short video about him a couple of weeks ago. Also, jackalopes, as some of you may know, is probably one of my favorite, if not my favorite, cryptid. Into this. So, I'm going to be starting a new series, and this is the first one of those videos. I'm taking a short break from the Rulers and Leaders series because I'm pretty much caught up to where the anime is, and I want to give it a little bit longer before I finish up, before I do the Sorbet Kingdom, and we haven't even gotten to Elbath in the anime. So, and like for Sorbet, I'll be talking about like Bakori and stuff like that, but I'll also be talking about Bonnie and Kuma, and their stuff in Egghead hasn't fully finished up yet in the anime, or at least I don't think it'll have by the time this goes up. I could be wrong. I don't know. So I'm like, let's do a different series that I haven't really gotten to touch on too much. So I'm going to start a series where I discuss each of the different cover page series that Oda has done throughout the course of the manga. And this is going to be all of the different ones, starting from Buggy's Crew, Adventure Chronicles, all the way up through, well, at the time that this is being recorded, the Yamato cover page story, which I've technically covered in the chapter reviews, but now we'll have more context for some of the stuff that's going on. And the intention with the cover page stories is to kind of go over where they fall in the series, like where they pick up for the characters, and then where they kind of leave the characters, where we then see them again later in the manga. For kind of setting up that stuff. Also, if there's any cameos from other characters that pop up in the background, or that they interact with, that like those characters end up being like important later on, or some stuff that happens in the cover page series that still kind of has ramifications down the line, 20 something whatever years down the line. So we're going to start with Buggy's Chronicles, Buggy's Crew Adventure Chronicles, which is the first cover page series that Oda does. And this series is, of course, the first of the short term of the cover page serials that Oda does, and this focuses on the exploits of Buggy and his crew after their defeat at Orange Town by Luffy and Nami and Zoro. And it kind of goes into that. It kind of shows what ends up happening with Buggy and shows what happens with his crew. And this is one of the, I think there's only three in total that actually have been adapted into the anime. This one, The Diary of Kobe Meppo, and then part of the Wappo one was technically adapted into the anime. And I don't know. I know at this point in time it would be kind of hard to go back and adapt all of the cover page series that haven't been adapted at this point in time. Because it would be like way out of order, because this is taking back during, Orange Town, after Orange Town, and during like Syrup Village and the Baratier and stuff like that, and even into the Arlong Park is like when this stuff is happening, when this cover page series is happening. So it's like, I don't know. Most of the other ones would be kind of hard to go back and like retrace those steps to show where those characters ended up, but it would be a fun thing to do. And I know that there is going to be a remake of One Piece that I think Wit Studios is the one that's doing it, that they're working on. So I hope that they're going to be adapting the cover page series. So this one is about 30 chapters long. It runs from chapter 30 all the way up to 75. During this time frame, there's also several other different color page spreads that pop up in this that Oda does, along with, I think, a couple of ones that are just the Straw Hats having fun at that point in time. And there might be like, I think 1 or 2 that don't actually have a cover page on it, which is a rare thing. And this got adapted over the course of 2 episodes, episode 46 and 47, where they kind of cut back and forth with like what the Straw Hats are doing and cutting back and forth with what's going on with like Buggy and his crew. Okay. So yeah, the short summary of this is that Buggy, after being defeated by Luffy and Nami at Orange Town, ends up getting shot into the air, and then this is essentially how he ends up finding his way back to his crew and what his crew does while he's not there. Also, there ends up being an alliance that's formed. So, let's get going on this. Also, I will be using the colored cover pages of these that we have for like the official color page spreads for these, and then since this one has been adapted into the anime, I will be using some of the stills, some of the screenshots from the anime as well. So this starts off, as I said, at the beginning of chapter 35. And it's the cover page series, beginning of that one. And it starts off, this is after Buggy has been, I don't remember which bazooka gun or whatever it was that he got out of Shell's Town by Luffy after Nami tied up his body, and then Luffy sent his head, arms, and feet, that were the only things remaining on his body, sending them flying out of Orange Town. So Buggy kind of ends up desperately on this like small raft that he built, and he's paddling desperately on the raft to try to get anywhere, and he keeps being attacked by fighting fish, which is just kind of funny. So we see him getting attacked by them. And we cut to Orange Town in the next one, where we see Mochi and Kabaji, who are, of course, the 2 second strongest members of Buggy's crew. And they, after they were beaten very soundly by, like, Zoro and Luffy and Nami and such like that. They're beaten pretty soundly. They get chased out of Orange Town by Boodle and the citizens. So they're like, oh god, we gotta get out of here. And by Chow Chow. So they're chased out of Orange Town. And they kind of end up just on like some random island is essentially where they end up. With Buggy's adventure, we then have it that Buggy ends up making landfall on just a random island. One of the random islands in the East Blue. And he ends up coming across this, the first animal that he sees. He starts trying to hunt it, and this is an apparently defenseless chick that Buggy somehow has a knife and fork with him, because, I guess, reasons. And he starts to try to pin the bird down so he can eat it. Doesn't go well. In the next one, the parent of the bird shows up, and decides that, yeah, no, you are threatening my chick. This ain't happening. And Buggy ends up running off. The giant bird, the big bird, as it's just referred to as. This is just looking this up because it's like notes about some of these stuff. It's just a very large bird that tries to eat Buggy and get revenge because Buggy tried to eat its chick. So, yeah. So we never see this bird again in the series beyond this cover page series as far as I'm aware. And this is not the Island of Rare Animals. We'll get to that. But what ends up happening is Buggy, of course, runs away in terror. On the next cover page, we have it that it's a battle of wits. And Buggy has tried to set up a pitfall trap. To be fair, he dug the trap with only his hands and feet, so that's kind of impressive, I guess, because it's not like, unless Buggy has hammer space and pulled out a shovel or something, he managed to dig a hole and try to cover it. The bird figured this out, and it's like, yeah, no, this is a pitfall trap. This looks completely and utterly wrong, and I know this island. This shouldn't be here, type of a thing. So Buggy thinks he's being smart. The bird's like, yeah, no, this guy's an idiot. We get to the next cover page series, Journey Through the Sky, Part 2. And the bird successfully captured Buggy and essentially tries to eat him, starts chewing on him, realizes Buggy tastes horrible, and then spits him out and sends him flying again, which is just funny. So Buggy gets sent flying all over again. and ends up crash landing on the island of rare animals. That's where Buggy ends up. So he ends up landing on a certain island, and it attracts this crowd of bizarre animals. So this is where we have it that Buggy's landed there. This is after Nami and Luffy and Zoro to a degree have interacted with Gaimon. So we know about the island of rare animals, but Buggy doesn't. So now he's getting to learn about it. And what ends up happening is Buggy comes face to face with an even more bizarre man, as he's referred to as. And then we get battle in the Forest of Judgment, which is where Buggy and Gaimon kind of try to fight each other in like a giant, in like the area where Buggy landed, while the animals are just kind of watching from the outside. And Gaimon has a loaded pistol. I don't know where Gaimon got the loaded pistol from. I think he has it when he interacts with Luffy and the crew. So maybe they gave him some additional ammo. I have no idea. I don't know. But what ends up happening is they end up trying to fight each other, which doesn't go well for either of them. I would say Gaimon maybe has the advantage here because unlike Luffy, Buggy is not immune to blunt force damage. And pistols have blunt force damage. That's the way they're designed. So we have that. We get to the next chapter and it's just, oh, you're a freak too! Where like Buggy and Gaimon kind of end up looking at each other and realizing that maybe we're not so different. We both look pretty dang weird. So they're like fascinated by each other's bizarre physiologies because like, you know, Gaimon is stuck in a chest. Has been for quite a long time. And then Buggy is, you know, he's a head with, you know, 2 little arms and hands and 2 little legs, 2 little feet. And makeup all over him as a clown. To be fair, if a clown showed up and looked like that for me, I'd be like, okay, I don't know what's going on here, but this is definitely far more interesting than some of the other things I've seen today. So they end up having a huge party. Buggy and Gaimon end up having a huge party, which is just kind of fun. So we cut to that night, and they're just like partying with the animals and everything. And they're feasting on fruit and homemade liquor. So, assumedly, somehow Gaimon figured out how to ferment juice of some kind, the fruit juice or whatever, which is, you can do that. That's not a hard, okay. I should say that's not a hard thing to do. If you're trying to do it right, it's a hard thing to do. But, I don't know, if you've been stuck on an island for as long as Gaimon has, just any type of alcohol might be a wise decision. Might be a welcome thing. So the next chapter is Farewell to a Worthy Foe. And Buggy has managed to, with Gaimon's help, build a new raft for Buggy to be able to try to get away on the island, get away from the island of rare animals on. Buggy, while he was there, didn't actually end up trying to hurt any of the animals, which is good. He probably got a bit of the backstory from Gaimon about why he was there. I don't know if Buggy ever ends up finding out that Gaimon is friends with the Straw Hats. Although, to be fair, Buggy maybe didn't ask. Gaimon, wow, you're the third person who's come to visit me this week. Buggy, who are the other 2? Boy with a straw hat named Luffy talking about being the Pirate King and a girl with orange hair. Buggy just angry off in the corner. That would be funny. So they make the raft and Buggy starts sailing off. They leave on good terms and he's sailing off once again into the unknown. Then he gets attacked by a giant crab. Just giant crab pops out of the water with its claw, trying to snap Buggy's raft in half. I say try, very much succeeds in just snapping the raft in half, and Buggy is trying to escape. Boy. And then the next one is Enter the Mysterious Lady Pirate. So a female pirate has shown up and she has this heart-themed boat. She drives off the crab with her pistol. She shoots the crab and the crab ends up running away. And she ends up saving Buggy, which is just hilarious. And in the cover page series, when this is first happening, a lot of people were like, who the heck is this lady? And this one, fun fact, actually got a redraw from Boichi, who's the same one that does the art for who did the art for the manga for Dr. Stone. By the way, I love the episode of Suika having to be on her own. Just tangent. I love the episode of Suika having to be on her own for so long. And girl perseveres and is awesome. I love Suika. She's great. Back to this. But so this was a redraw done by Boichi for the 22nd anniversary, and Boichi was redrawing part of the battle, I believe, between Mihawk and Zoro, because that's kind of when this chapter is lining up with in the manga. So he redrew the cover page for the One Piece cover comic project, was the thing that they were doing. Boichi did a couple of other ones of these as well. He does one where he redraws the fight between Nami and Khalifa during Enies Lobby. So they kind of have that too. And so we have that. So that's kind of like, this one gets like a redraw that way. Then we get into the next one, and it's just like, Wanted Man, and Buggy is shocked when he finds out that this mysterious savior produces a picture of the man he's searching for, of Luffy. So it's like, pulls out Luffy's. In the anime, I don't remember if they make it Luffy's wanted poster or not. I don't remember how that lines up, because Luffy doesn't have his wanted poster until after Arlong Park. So it's just like, I think, a drawing of Luffy, and then Buggy just recognizes it, and like the mysterious woman is explaining to him, yeah, I need to get a hold of this kid. So then we move into Pirate Alliance, which is like the longest running pirate alliance that we have seen in this entire series. Given that it has lasted over 2 years for this pirate alliance. And so this pirate alliance is formed over drinks and a hot meal, and Buggy and the woman agree to be partners in the hunt for Luffy. It's like, the enemy of my enemy is my friend, although Buggy and the woman really haven't had a reason to not get along yet. By the way, just for the purposes of sticking with the context of the story, I'm not going to reveal who this woman is until the end of the thing. Although, if you've read the cover page series, and you know who it is anyway. From there, we have it that we move into the next one, and this is, "Oh Captain, we hold you in our hearts." And this cuts back to Buggy's crew, who have ended up on just some other island, on an unknown island, and they are essentially having a funeral for Buggy. So they have Buggy's body that was tied up by Nami, and they bury it, and they make like a little memorial for Buggy, which is just kind of funny. And they're like all, Mochi and Kabaji are just crying, but Richie the lion is just trying to figure out, I wonder where my next meal's coming from. When are we gonna get food again? And then like they have the rest of the crew all around them, so they like bury Buggy's body. I'm like, I don't know, maybe untie it and see what happens. So they have that, and they don't know that Buggy is actually alive. They think that he's dead. So they're like, they hold a funeral for him, which is just funny. And then it is the duel of Captain Succession. So now they're trying to figure out, okay, well, with Captain Buggy gone, who's going to be in charge of the crew next? And it's like, okay, well, the only way to solve this is to have Mochi and Kabaji fight for, the right to succeed as captain of the Buggy Pirates. Which I'm like, yeah, that'll work. That always goes so well. Because battles of succession in that regard always go so well. See Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon for examples of not working so well. So Mochi and Kabaji end up fighting. And we cut into a 12-hour bout, which is the next one. And by nightfall, Mochi and Kabaji are still fighting. Still no closer to deciding on the captain. And what ends up happening is the other pirates have long ago fallen asleep, including Richie, who is the lion. And he's just enjoying his own dream about being captain. I love how delusional the lion is. So, I mean, this shows a fair amount of dedication from Mochi and Kabaji. They've already been beaten up by, like, Zoro and Nami and Luffy and stuff like that from Orange Town. They got chased out of Orange Town. Now they've had to say goodbye to their captain. Now they're like, okay, now we gotta fight to determine who's gonna be captain. And it's like, okay, well, we'll see what happens here. And it's 12 hours later. I mean, like, the Battle of Onigashima wasn't even 12 hours long. So these guys got some type of stamina. So they're at least doing something right in their training. They would still get bodied by any members of the Straw Hats, but that's not saying much considering that these guys don't really end up ever really leveling up. Moji ends up getting fat, if I remember correctly, because Kabaji is the one that's like on the unicycle and is like the blade juggler, if I remember correctly, and then Moji is the lion tamer, if I remember correctly, or it's the other way around and I've just completely messed them up. Whichever. And what ends up happening is they keep fighting. We get to the next one, and it's Explosion, Sleepwalking Richie. And still dreaming of adventures as a pirate of his own crew, a sleepwalking Richie unknowingly knocks out both Moji and Kabachi. And so we have formation, the Richie pirate crew. So we cut to the next morning, and Moji and Kabaji are just lying on the ground, still beaten, and a triumphant but confused Richie is declared the new captain, complete with his own Jolly Roger, so they moved quickly on that one. They also give him, like, a nice coat like what Buggy had and a hat. So I'm like, okay, that works. So then there's, like, the two little side story ones that pop up in here that are, like, Richie Crew's Adventure Chronicles, Volume 1, The Island of Indigenous Kumate Tribe. So this is where we have it that the newly minted Richie pirates, which lasts for about, like, 2 chapters, run into a pack of heavily armed natives, is how they're referred to as. And these are the Kumate tribe. Kumate. Kumate tribe. And they are a group of cannibalistic people in the East Blue. And besides this appearance on the cover page series, I don't think we've ever seen these guys again. I mean, like, I guess it kind of plays into the, like, this is a very isolated area for them. And it's just not something that a lot of other people tend to deal with. Also, it kind of plays into the fact that, like, a lot of the times pirates and other sailors were very worried about, like, running into areas where there were, like, cannibalistic tribes. And I'm like, yeah, that's a thing to worry about so much because there's so many different tribes all over mostly in, like, Africa and South America for the way that they were describing them at the time during, like, the Great Pirate Era in our actual world. It's like, no, I'm pretty sure that's just racist stereotypes and not understanding people. To be fair, there have been cannibals throughout history, cannibalistic tribes throughout history, so I'm not going to argue with that, but they're not as prevalent as some people thought they were. But we never see this tribe again after this cover page series. And then for the next one, we have the Richie's Crew Adventure Chronicles Conclusion. The pulverization of the Richie Pirates. They just get beaten up by this tribe just so quickly. Richie tries to lead the crew into a quick battle, and it ends up being this very quick and brutal defeat at the hands of the tribe, which is just kind of funny. Cutting back to Buggy and the mysterious woman. It's like, I see it, my pirate ship, and it's Buggy and the mysterious woman are sailing on her ship, and they see the familiar ship, which is the Big Top, and they're getting to it, and they dock beside the ship on the island, and they start looking around, and then we get Reunion, that's Bananas, where we have it that they end up making their way onto the island, and they end up finding Buggy and the mysterious lady end up finding Buggy's crew. We see Mochi and Kabaji both beaten senseless and still unconscious. and laying, right beside Buggy's grave, which is just funny. And it's just like, funny bit there. Then we cut to Richie Onvin, which is Richie and Company stewed in red wine. So at the very least, the Kumate tribe seem to be a little bit high class in how they cook their food. They've been taking cooking lessons. So to their horror, Richie and the other pirates have been discovered that the tribe is cannibals, and they have no qualms about cooking a lion right alongside their human captives, which is just kind of funny. And then we have suspicious parts. So the Kumate tribe managed to grab Buggy's body that was still tied up, and along with the other pirates, and they're like, and they open it up and they reveal Buggy's torso and limbs, and they're just like, okay, more meat is essentially their answer there. So we're getting close to the end of this. What ends up happening is now we have rampaging parts. So Buggy, Mysterious Woman, Moji, and Kabaji have managed to kind of find their way close enough where Buggy can start taking control of his body parts again. And the body parts manage to get out of the ropes, and they start attacking the Kumate tribe. The chaos allows the rest of the crews to get free from the cooking pot that they were in. And then we have shadows on the horizon. So now we have it that, they look over and they see, on top of one of these, plateaus. My brain went to peninsula, and I'm like, nope, that's a type of landmass. Plateaus, and we see that it's Buggy and the Mystery Lady and Kabaji and Moji that are there, and they have a giant cannon, and they're like, hi! And Buggy is using his body to attack the Kumate tribe. And the rest of them are just the rest of the crew is just so overjoyed to see Buggy again. They're so happy to see him again. And what ends up happening is, they're like, okay, Buggy's, using his body to attack the Kumate tribe and defeat them. And from there, it's like, sorry for making you wait, boys. So it's, Buggy has now made his grand reappearance. His body has been restored at last, and at his side are his new partner, the Mysterious Woman, Moji, and Kabaji. And then we have Parade, where we have it that, so I think in the anime, they actually have it that in the anime adaptation about this, I believe that the Mysterious Woman reveals herself at this point in time, but they're able to, the four of them defeat the rest of the Kumate tribe pretty easily, and the rest of his crew are just cheering and so happy to see him again. So we have that. And then we have the final cover page for this series. And that was chapter 75. And that was, "Oh, Captain, our Captain." And it's restored to his former glory. Buggy stands tall with his crew and his new ally as his premature grave crushed underfoot and his Jolly Roger flying high. So this is where the cover page series ends. And this puts Buggy at where we have him reunited with his crew and his new ally, in order to then go and end up finding Luffy and the others when they are at Logtown, which we will get to see in the live action pretty soon when that comes out. So we have that fun bit there. That'll be a fun bit to watch. I like it. It looks pretty good for how they're going to be handling that in the live action. And where we lead into, Luffy being on the executioner's block, on the execution platform, and everything lining up there. So, things that are kind of follow-up from this series. I think in the anime, they actually end up having the Mysterious Woman reveal who she is, which, of course, if you've read the series and read the cover page series and read the manga and stuff like that, you know that this is Alvida, who is the very first pirate that Luffy ends up interacting with on his journey once he leaves Fuchsia Village. Helps Kobe get away from her and everything. Um, so they have that all set up there. Alvida, this is revealing Alvida's new look. And then later on, we end up and like the reason that like nobody was like trying to didn't think that this was Alvida, they just thought it was some other woman who had maybe heard of Luffy, is because the last time we saw Alvida, she was quite a bit bigger. And subsequently, now she has managed to eat the Suba Sube no Mi, or the Slip Slip fruit. I think I have that over here somewhere in my collection of devil fruits. And she has slimmed up. To be fair, I don't know if I'd want that devil fruit or not. It would definitely help slim me up, which would be nice. But we never get an explanation as to where all of the body fat goes. Also, I don't know if I'd want to be slippery all the time, which just sounds weird. So they end up, they've developed this alliance, and this alliance still lasts to this day because Alvida is there at Logtown with them when they're trying to deal with Luffy, and then she ends up going with Buggy and his crew into the Grand Line to chase after Luffy and the others. She takes over the crew for a while when Buggy gets captured by the Marines, and then they are eventually reunited after Buggy is able to escape from Impel Down with Luffy and all of that group, the Impel Down breakout. They are eventually reunited, and he tells her that, I have this information for how to find Captain John's treasure, which to the best of our knowledge they still have not found. And then over the 2-year time skip, she ends up being part of his crew as he is made one of the new warlords of the sea because of the abdication of Jinbei and the betrayal of Blackbeard. Now they have, and Moria being essentially excommunicated and thought to be dead for a good chunk of time. Buggy is made one of the new warlords of the sea along with Law and Weevil. So Alvida is still part of his crew during that time frame. We then get into the fact that now, and they build up Buggy's Big Top and the big red circus and Buggy's delivery service, and like Alvida is there through all of that, and she's the only woman on Buggy's crew unless there's like some other women that are part of the other pirate groups, the other pirates and bounty hunters and stuff like that work for Buggy in that setup. And then now she was part of the crew that was going to go with Buggy when they were trying to escape Kalebale Island. And then Crocodile showed up and Mihawk and all of that, and now the Cross Guild has been formed and Alvida is still there. Mochi, Kabaji, and Richie are all still there. Several other members of the crew from Buggy's original crew are still there and are just now high-ranking officers by complete and utter default, which is hilarious. Richie and Moji have gotten fat from eating so much food, which is just funny. And, Buggy is now one, they have the Cross Guild. He's one of the Yonko, which in the world's eyes puts him on the same level as like Luffy and Shanks and Blackbeard and all of that stuff. And he's got Crocodile and Mihawk as subordinates, which is just hilarious. So it's like there's all of that, and it's just like Buggy has come so far. So it's like reflecting on where the cover page series happens in the story and then kind of where those ramifications have led to now. Because all of this leads into, the end of this is like it does lead into Buggy and Alvida and his crew going and trying to get Luffy at Logtown, and then that lights this fire in Buggy that makes him go into the Grand Line and makes him return to the Grand Line for the first time in 20-something years since his captain died, since Roger was executed. And so we get that, and I love that. And it just gives us this bit of this new motivation and this new layer to Buggy that we see. And, but after this, like, kind of after, because, like, the next time that Luffy and the others interact with Buggy, Luffy interacts with Buggy, is during Impel Down, and Buggy ends up becoming an ally. And, of course, they meet Galdino and everything else like that. So he ends up being part of, Buggy's delivery service, and the crew and all of that stuff gets him and Buggy get along so well. So we have all of that, which is really like a fun way of showing that progression of the characters and showing like these cover page series are important because it's going to give us information. This wasn't one of the series that gave us like any, oh my god, important revelations during it, but there's been a few other ones that we have had, most notably the recent stuff about Moria in regards to Yamato's cover page story, stuff dealing with Mads and the Germa cover page series, a few other ones here and there that have led to some interesting revelations either in the cover page chapter or that then hints at something that's going to happen in the actual chapter or something like that. So that's another reason why I want to do this, because it's like, well, so many of these have been out for so long that we've gotten additional information about the cover page series and like where they put the characters, where they end up. And then it's like some of the more new ones, it's like, okay, there's been a lot revealed in them. So, you know, in regards to some other interesting things for how certain characters ended up in the certain places and where they might be when we end up coming across them again later in the story. And I'm quite certain that Luffy and the others are going to end up interacting with the Cross Guild at some point in time. There's a theory that Law is going to end up in the Cross Guild, or that maybe Hancock might end up joining the Cross Guild because it's a bunch of former warlords. Some variation of that is one of the things. I don't know. Buggy has declared that he wants to go after the One Piece, so we'll see what happens with that. In the anime, we're going to be seeing, or have seen by now, them listening to I believe we do see them listening to Vegapunk's message, but I'm not exactly sure. I think we see them, but it's not as like obvious as what we see with like some of the other characters. But I do think we see that the Cross Guild is listening to Vegapunk's message. So the next one for this one is going to be the Diary of Kobe Meppo, which is going to be Kobe and Helmeppo's story, leading from when when everything happens at Shellstown up through them becoming, you know, apprentice Marines. So that's what we have here. I thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. As I said, it's the first one of a new series. I'm hoping these go well, and I hope you have a nice rest of your day. Bye!